Jack Simmons existed in a state best described as aggressively beige. His life, his apartment, his wardrobe, even his lunch were variations on the theme of unremarkable. He was a junior accountant at Sterling and Finch, a mid-tier financial firm in Chicago, where the most exciting part of his day was the automated coffee machine occasionally dispensing something that vaguely resembled hot chocolate. He crunched numbers, double-checked spreadsheets, and dreamt of a life where accrued depreciation wasn't a daily vocabulary term. His bank account balance hovered perpetually just above panic-inducing, a constant reminder of student loans and the general expensiveness of merely existing. Then came the Tuesday that shattered the beige forever. It started as most earth-shattering events in accounting do, with a spreadsheet. Payroll reconciliation. Tedious, soul-numbing work. Jack was clicking through lines, eyes glazing over, when a number jumped out at him. Not just jumped, it performed a triple axel with sequined pyrotechnics right off the screen and into his brain. His own line item. Jack Simmons. Net pay. $250 million. Jack blinked, rubbed his eyes, checked the employee ID number. Yep, that was him. Checked the routing and account numbers. Definitely his sad little checking account at First National Bank. He scrolled sideways, looking for an error code, a misplaced decimal, anything. Nothing, just that number, sitting there, mocking his usual $1,847.32 bi-weekly deposit. His heart started doing a frantic drum solo against his ribs. This had to be a mistake. A colossal career-ending, possibly jail time-inducing mistake. Someone had slipped on a keyboard, added about 6 extra zeros, maybe sneezed while hitting enter. He imagined the chaos when Sterling and Finch realized they'd accidentally wired the GDP of a small island nation to their most junior number cruncher. Heads would roll. His head, specifically, felt particularly wobbly. He minimized the spreadsheet, hands shaking. He needed to report this immediately. Call Brenda in HR, maybe Mr. Henderson, his perpetually stressed direct supervisor. But he hesitated. He opened his online banking app, entering his password with trembling fingers. The page loaded. Checking account balance, $250,137. The $137.48 was his previous balance. The rest, it was real. It was there, sitting in his account like an enormous, glittering, terrifying elephant. He stared at it. The number didn't flicker. It didn't vanish in a puff of logic. $250 million. His. Well, not his, but currently residing under his name. He spent the rest of the day in a fugue state. Every email notification made him jump. Every footstep outside his cubicle sounded like impending doom. He pretended to work, rearranging icons on his desktop and staring intently at blank cells. He expected sirens, men in black suits. At the very least, a frantic call from Brenda demanding to know why the company payroll was short $250 million. Nothing happened. He went home walking like a man trying to appear normal while smuggling a live nuclear warhead in his briefcase. He ate leftover pizza, tasting none of it. He watched television, understanding none of it. He kept checking his banking app. The number remained solid and obscene. By morning, a strange calm, tinged with exhilarating madness, had settled over him. Still nothing. No emails. No calls. No company-wide panic. It was as if the universe had just shrugged. Sterling and Finch, a company that tracked paperclips like they were Faber-Got eggs, seemed utterly oblivious to the fact that they'd misplaced a sum large enough to buy a controlling interest in. A tiny mischievous thought, one that would have been unthinkable 24 hours ago, slithered into his brain. What if they never notice? It was insane, preposterous. But the money was there. That Friday, paychecks went out as usual, including Jack's regular non-millionaire paycheck. It deposited neatly on top of the Everest of cash already in his account. Still no alarms. This wasn't just a glitch anymore. This felt different, almost intentional, in a bizarre, cosmic way. As he stared at the obscene balance on his phone screen that weekend, a faint shimmer seemed to coalesce in his vision, overlaying the banking app. Text appeared, crisp and minimalist, like something out of a high-end video game interface. Capital acquisition system initialized. Current capital, $250 million. Status, dormant glitch, undetected. Objective, survive, thrive, spend. Jack yelped and dropped his phone. It clattered onto his cheap IKEA coffee table. He stared at the spot where the text had been. Nothing. He picked up the phone, screen thankfully intact. The banking app was still open, displaying the horrifyingly beautiful number. No overlay, no system message. Had he imagined it? Stress? Lack of sleep? Early onset insanity brought on by accidental mega wealth? But the words echoed in his mind: survive, thrive, spend, spend. The system, if it was a system and not a hallucination, wanted him to spend the money. Not hide it, not confess, but actively use it. The idea was terrifying and intoxicating. He spent the weekend wrestling with his conscience, his fear, and the ghost of that system message. His conscience argued for honesty, for returning the money, for going back to his beige life. His fear screamed about audits, prison, public disgrace. But the system's whisper, the allure of thriving, of spending, It was a powerful counter-argument. $250 million. On Monday morning, Jack Simmons walked into Sterling, and Finch a different man. Outwardly, he was the same slightly rumpled junior accountant. Inwardly, he was a man sitting on a dragon's hoard, with a possibly imaginary system telling him to go buy some treasure. He decided to test the waters. Nothing crazy, just dipping a toe. During his lunch break, he didn't go to the usual sandwich shop. He walked, heart-pounding, a few blocks over to Michigan Avenue. He found himself standing outside a Rolex store. The polished wood, the soft lighting, the security guard, who looked like he could bench press a small car, it all screamed, "You don't belong here." He almost turned back. Then he remembered the number in his account. He remembered the phantom message spend. He pushed the heavy glass door open. A salesman, impeccably dressed, glided over. His eyes did a quick dismissive scan of Jack's off-the-rack suit and sensible shoes. "Can I help you, sir?" The sir sounded polite but held an undertone of "quickly before you smudge the glass." "Yes," Jack said, surprised at how steady his voice sounded. "I'd like to see a submariner." The salesman's eyebrow twitched almost imperceptibly. "Certainly, sir." "The steel model?" "No," Jack said, feeling a surge of reckless confidence. "Yellow gold, blue dial." The salesman's professional mask slipped for a fraction of a second. That was a serious piece. He led Jack over to a velvet-lined display case. There it was, gleaming under the spotlights, solid gold, a blue face like the deep ocean. It cost more than Jack's annual salary, pre-glitch salary anyway. "It's quite striking," the salesman murmured, unlocking the case. Jack tried it on. The weight on his wrist felt substantial, alien. He looked at his reflection in the polished case. The watch looked absurdly expensive on his JCPenney-clad arm. "I'll take it," Jack said. The salesman blinked. "Just like that, sir?" "Just like that." Jack pulled out his debit card, the same one linked to the account holding $250 million. He braced himself for alarms, for the transaction to be declined, for Interpol to rappel through the windows. The salesman processed the payment. The machine beeped approvingly. Approved. Jack signed the receipt. He walked out of the Rolex store with a small, heavy bag, leaving a slightly stunned salesman in his wake. Outside, on the Magnificent Mile, the Chicago wind felt different, sharper, more exciting. He looked at the heavy gold watch on his wrist. It wasn't just a watch. It was proof. Proof that the money was real, spendable. Proof that the system maybe was real too. And as he looked at the gleaming blue dial, another faint shimmer appeared in his vision, just for a second. Objective complete. First luxury purchase. $10 K. Reward confidence +1 temporary. New objective, upgrade your wheels. Budget, $200 K, $500 K. Jack grinned. Confidence +1. He could feel it. This wasn't just a glitch, this was a game. And he was player one. The next few weeks were a blur of controlled extravagance. Jack learned quickly that walking into a Lamborghini dealership in his old Honda Civic garnered pitying looks. But walking and flashing a solid gold Rolex got him immediate, fawning attention. He test drove an Aventador, the engine roaring like a thunder god gargling gravel. The sheer, visceral power was addictive. He remembered the system's objective. Upgrade your wheels. Budget $200 K, $500 K. "I am thinking Hirac Nevo," he told the salesman, trying to sound casual, like he debated six-figure supercar purchases over his morning coffee. Arancio Borealis. That's orange for the uninitiated, which Jack definitely had been until 5 minutes ago, thanks to a quick Google search on his phone. "An excellent choice, sir," the salesman purred, already mentally calculating his commission. "Would you like to discuss financing options?" "No need," Jack said, pulling out his debit card again. This time, the thrill was even greater. Buying a car that cost more than his parents' house with a debit card felt like peak absurdity. Again, the transaction went through without a hitch. Sterling and Finch remained blissfully unaware. The system, however, seemed pleased. Objective complete. Upgrade your wheels. Reward, driving skill +5. Passive. Public notice +10. New objective, establish a worthy residence. Min. Value $5 million. Driving skill +5? Jack wasn't sure what that meant until he was navigating the orange beast out of the dealership. Suddenly, the car felt less like an untamed monster and more like an extension of his own body. Lane changes were smoother, parking felt intuitive. It was subtle, but noticeable. The public notice +10, however, was less subtle. People stared. Everywhere. Pulling up to his dingy apartment building in a blazing orange Lamborghini attracted the kind of attention usually reserved for alien landings. His neighbors peeked through blinds, mouths agape. Clearly, the apartment had to go. The system agreed. Establish a worthy residence. Minimum $5 million. Jack started looking at penthouses overlooking Millennium Park, sprawling Lincoln Park mansions, sleek Gold Coast condos with lake views that could make a poet weep. He found it in a gleaming new skyscraper piercing the clouds, a full-floor penthouse. Still raw space waiting to be customized. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a 360-degree panorama of the city. It cost $12 million. Jack didn't even blink. He hired a top interior designer telling her, "Money is no object. Make it look like Tony Stark's cooler. Richer cousin lives here." Work became a strange juxtaposition. He'd spend his days reconciling petty cash accounts and arguing about $5 discrepancies, all while secretly managing the renovation of a multi-million-dollar penthouse and driving a car that looked like a spaceship. His colleagues noticed the change, of course. The Rolex was the first clue. Then came the impeccably tailored suits he started wearing. Goodbye, JCPenney. Hello, bespoke Savile Row ordered during a whirlwind weekend trip to London first class naturally. Hitting the lottery, Jack? Sarah Jenkins asked one day by the coffee machine. Sarah was sharp-witty and one of the few people in the office Jack genuinely liked. She worked in corporate strategy and had eyes that seemed to see a bit too much. Jack gave her a practiced, easy grin. Something like that. Maybe my crypto investments finally paid off. He'd seeded this vague rumor himself. It was flimsy, but better than the company accidentally gave me $250 million and a magic money system told me to spend it. Sarah raised an eyebrow but didn't push. Well, whatever it is, it looks good on you. Though the orange Lamborghini might be a tad conspicuous for pulling into the Sterling and Finch parking garage, he'd actually started parking a few blocks away in a private garage. Even he wasn't that brazen. Yet, the system kept nudging him. Subtle prompts, feelings, objectives, that shimmered into existence at opportune moments. Host an exclusive gathering. Acquire rare timepiece ton $100 K. Invest in emerging tech site ton $1 million. Each completed objective brought small, sometimes strange rewards. Charisma +2 when discussing finances. Taste refinement +10. Negotiation edge. Minor. It felt like leveling up in the world's most expensive RPG. He bought a Patek Philippe Nautilus steel. Ridiculously hard to get, instantly recognizable to those in the know. He threw a lavish party in his partially finished penthouse, catering by a Michelin-starred chef, crystal flowing like water. He hired a wealth management team, from a rival firm, obviously, feeding them carefully selected information, and letting them handle the legitimate side of his growing portfolio, funded by strategic withdrawals from the main account. He was building a narrative, a smokescreen of savvy investments and lucky breaks. Life became a whirlwind of luxury. Dinners at Alinea and Ever, courtside Bulls tickets, private jets for weekend jaunts to Miami or Aspen, clothes that cost more than his old monthly rent. He learned the subtle language of wealth, the brands, the places, the nonchalance. He got ridiculously good at navigating the world of the ultra-rich, partly thanks to his own quick learning, partly, he suspected, due to the system's quiet buffs. But amidst the glitz, a shadow lingered. The fear of discovery hadn't vanished. It had just been suppressed by the sheer exhilaration. And Sterling and Finch, while seemingly oblivious to the initial colossal error, wasn't entirely asleep. The first inkling of trouble came not from accounting but from it, and specifically, from a man named Kevin Fletcher. Kevin was the polar opposite of Jack's new persona. Where Jack was becoming smooth and confident, Kevin was perpetually hunched, with eyes that darted nervously, and a suit that always looked vaguely slept in. He worked in data security, a mid-level drone known for being meticulous to the point of paranoia, and generally ignored by everyone. He was also, Jack vaguely recalled, known for being bitter about being passed over for promotions. Jack first noticed Kevin watching him, not overtly but quick glances in the hallway, lingering a little too long near Jack's cubicle, which Jack stubbornly kept, finding the contrast amusing, appearing. Jack, newly attuned to social cues, thanks, system, filed it away as simple curiosity or perhaps jealousy. Everyone was curious about his sudden transformation. Then came the email. Subject, quick question. Sender Kevin Fletcher. Jack, hope you are having a good week. Was doing some deep system diagnostics on the payroll servers over the weekend, chasing a phantom error log. Came across something anomalous. Around the time your, fortunes seemed to change. Probably nothing. Just a ghost in the machine. Maybe we could grab coffee sometime. Chat about it? Best. Kevin. Jack's blood ran cold. Anomalous, phantom error log. Kevin wasn't just curious. He was digging, and he'd found something. The casual tone of the email was completely undermined by the loaded implications. This wasn't a friendly chat invitation. This was the first probe. He stared at the email, the cursor blinking innocently. The system offered no guidance, no shimmering text, no sudden, deal with nosy at guy objective. This was real-world, non-system assisted trouble. How much did Kevin know? Did he know the amount? Did he have proof? Or just a suspicion? A loose thread he was pulling? Jack's first instinct was panic. His second was annoyance. How dare this little weasel threaten his perfect system-fueled fantasy? His third, sharpened by months of navigating high-stakes deals and luxury purchases, was calculation. He couldn't ignore Kevin. But he couldn't show fear either. He typed a reply, keeping it breezy. Kevin, sure man, always happy to chat. Things have been crazy busy though. How about sometime next week? Let me know it works. Cheers, Jack. He hit send, his hand steady, despite the tremor in his gut. He needed information. He needed control. Kevin Fletcher had just become the first major bug in his otherwise flawless system. And bugs, Jack knew from his accounting days, needed to be squashed, quickly and quietly. The coffee meeting was set for Wednesday, off-site at a Starbucks near the office. Jack arrived first, choosing a table in the corner with a clear view of the entrance. He wore a Tom Ford suit that probably cost more than Kevin's last vacation, and on his wrist, the Patek Philippe gleamed subtly, projecting confidence, projecting untouchability. That was the strategy. Kevin scuttled in, looking even more nervous than usual. He clutched a worn briefcase like a life raft. He ordered a complicated frappuccino, while Jack stuck to black coffee. "So," Jack began, keeping his tone light, friendly even. "System diagnostics, huh? Sounds thrilling. Find any good phantoms?" Kevin fidgeted, stirring his drink vigorously. "Yeah, well, you know it. 99% boredom. 1%. What the hell is that?" This was definitely in the 1% category. He avoided Jack's eyes. "Big anomaly. Payroll server logs. Time-stamped right before that big deposit hit your account." Jack kept his expression neutral. "My account? Which deposit are we talking about?" "My crypto finally mooned. Told Sarah about it." He took a sip of coffee. Kevin looked up, a flicker of something frustration, greed, in his eyes. "Oh, I don't think this was Bitcoin, Jack. This had Sterling and Finch's digital fingerprints all over it. A transfer authorization that, well, it looked legitimate on the surface. But the size of it? For a junior accountant? And the way the confirmation logs were weirdly, almost too clean." He leaned in slightly, lowering his voice, like someone tried to cover their tracks but didn't quite get everything. Jack felt a prickle of alarm. Kevin wasn't just guessing. He'd found actual digital evidence, or at least evidence of tampering. "Sounds like a major screw-up by payroll," Jack offered nonchalantly. "Good thing you caught it. You reported it, right?" This was the crucial question. Kevin gave a short, bitter laugh. "Report it? To who? Henderson? The VPS? They'd want to know why I was running deep diagnostics on months-old payroll logs without authorization. They'd want to know how I bypassed certain security protocols to even see that data." He shook his head. "No, no. This stays between us. For now." There it was, the implicit threat. "For now." "What exactly are you getting at, Kevin?" Jack asked, his voice hardening slightly. Kevin finally met his gaze. There was sweat beading on his upper lip. "Look, Jack, I am not stupid. I see the car, the watch, the suits. You went from zero to Bruce Wayne overnight. And I found this anomaly, a $250 million anomaly, give or take." Jack's heart hammered. He knew the exact amount. Damn it. "It doesn't take a genius to connect the dots," Kevin continued, emboldened now. "The company screws up, wires you a fortune, somehow doesn't notice, and you just keep it. Start living like a king?" "That's a pretty wild accusation, Kevin," Jack said, forcing calm. "Based on a weird log file?" "It's more than a log file," Kevin insisted, clutching his briefcase tighter. "I have copies, encrypted, off-site." He swallowed hard. "Look, I don't want to cause trouble. I admire your initiative, honestly, taking advantage of a lucky break. But a guy like me, I work hard. I know my stuff, and I get constantly overlooked. People like you get the lucky breaks? Doesn't seem fair, does it?" Jack saw the angle now. It wasn't just about reporting the glitch. It was about getting a piece of the pie. Blackmail. Pure and simple. "What do you want, Kevin?" Jack asked flatly. Kevin visibly relaxed, sensing victory. "Nothing much. Just a little something to make things fair. A finder's fee, you could call it, for keeping quiet, for ensuring those logs stay buried." "How much?" Kevin licked his lips. $5 million. Jack almost laughed. $5 million? It was a lot of money, objectively. But compared to the $250 million, it was almost insulting. But Kevin didn't know the full scope, or maybe he was just testing the waters. $5 million is steep for keeping quiet about a phantom log, Jack countered, leaning back. "How do I know you won't just come back for more? How do I know you even have what you say you have?" "Oh, I have it," Kevin said, tapping his briefcase. "And as for coming back for more, let's call this a one-time insurance payment. You pay, I disappear digitally speaking. The logs vanish. My memory gets fuzzy. You go back to being Bruce Wayne." Jack considered. Paying him off was the simplest solution. $5 million was couch cushion money now. But it set a dangerous precedent. Blackmailers rarely stopped at one payment, and Kevin struck him as weak, greedy, and potentially clumsy. Giving him that much money might make him more dangerous, not less. And somewhere in the back of his mind, a faint system-like prompting echoed. Threat detected. Neutralize inefficiency. The system didn't like loose ends. It didn't like inefficiencies. And Kevin Fletcher was rapidly becoming a major inefficiency. "Let me think about it," Jack said, standing up. $5 million is a lot to pull together, even for a crypto millionaire. He let the lie hang there. "I'll be in touch." He walked out of the Starbucks, leaving Kevin looking smugly triumphant. But Jack wasn't thinking about payment. He was thinking about leverage. Kevin had bypassed security protocols, accessed data without authorization. That was grounds for immediate termination. Possibly legal action. If Sterling and Finch found out. Kevin thought he held all the cards, but maybe, just maybe, Jack could turn the tables. He needed more information on Kevin. His digital footprint, his work habits, his weaknesses. This wasn't about buying silence anymore. This was about ensuring it, permanently. The system seemed to approve. As he slid into the driver's seat of his Lamborghini, a new objective shimmered faintly. Objective acquired, resolve security leak. Recommended approach, leverage identification sought counter-exploitation. Potential rewards, system stability +5, discretion +10, asset protection skill, minor. Jack grinned. Counter-exploitation. He liked the sound of that. Kevin Fletcher wanted to play games? Fine. Jack had $250 million, a possibly sentient money system, and a growing taste for winning. Game on. Jack spent the next few days subtly gathering intel on Kevin Fletcher. It wasn't hard. Kevin was a creature of habit. Predictable routes to work. Same sad desk lunch every day. Evenings likely spent playing online games or complaining on obscure tech forums. Jack used some of his disposable income to hire a discreet private investigator, a former FBI agent recommended by his wealth manager's security consultant. It felt ridiculously cloak and dagger, but the system's prompt about leverage identification seemed to endorse proactive measures. The PI, a grizzled man named Marcus Thorne, who looked like he'd stepped out of a noir film, delivered his initial report within 48 hours. Kevin lived alone in a modest suburban apartment, had significant credit card debt, mostly from buying high-end computer components, and spent an inordinate amount of time logged into Sterling and Finch's servers after hours, often accessing areas far outside his job description. Thorne also uncovered Kevin's activity on several gray hat hacking forums under a pseudonym, Detaraith. Nothing overtly illegal seemed to have been done yet, but the pattern was clear. Kevin was skilled, curious, and felt entitled. "He's poking around the edges, Mr. Simmons," Thorne reported gravelly over a burner phone Jack had acquired. "Looks like he enjoys finding vulnerabilities. Pride thing, mostly. But that payroll server access, that was deep and recent. He wasn't just poking. He was looking for something specific. Or he stumbled onto something specific," Jack mused, "and now he thinks he's hit the jackpot." "People like Fletcher," Thorne said. "They get emboldened by a little success, but they're often sloppy when they think they've won. Overconfident." That gave Jack an idea. Kevin felt he had the upper hand. He expected Jack to be scrambling, scared. What if Jack did the opposite? What if he leaned into the Bruce Wayne persona? He sent Kevin a text. "Let's meet. My place. Friday night. 8 p.m. We'll discuss terms." He included the address of his nearly finished penthouse. Kevin's reply was almost instantaneous. "Sounds good." Jack could almost feel the greedy anticipation radiating through the phone. Friday night arrived. The penthouse wasn't fully furnished, but the key areas were spectacular. The main living area boasted Italian leather sofas, a state-of-the-art entertainment system hidden behind sleek panels, and a polished concrete floor partially covered by a silk rug that cost more than Kevin's car. The centerpiece, however, was the view Chicago sprawled below like a carpet of diamonds. Jack had dimmed the lights, letting the city skyline provide the ambiance. He stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, wearing a casual but ridiculously expensive cashmere sweater, swirling a glass of Macallan 25. Kevin arrived, looking distinctly out of place. His cheap suit seemed even cheaper against the backdrop of sheer luxury. He gaped openly at the apartment, his eyes wide. This was exactly the reaction Jack wanted. Intimidation masked as hospitality. "Kevin?" Jack greeted him smoothly, gesturing towards the view. "Glad you could make it. Drink?" Yeah, sure, thanks." Kevin stammered, still mesmerized by the surroundings. Jack poured him a generous measure of the Macallan. Kevin took a hesitant sip and nearly choked. It was probably stronger and smoother than anything he'd ever tasted. "Nice place," Kevin managed, trying to regain his composure. "Must have cost a pretty penny." "It's comfortable," Jack replied with calculated understatement. "Now, let's talk business. Your finder's fee." Kevin straightened up, trying to recapture his earlier confidence. "Right, 5 million. Wire transfer. Untraceable account, details to follow." Jack swirled his scotch, looking thoughtful. 5 million. It's doable. But Kevin, I need assurances. You mentioned copies. Off-site. Yeah, Kevin confirmed, puffing his chest out slightly. Multiple backups. Secure cloud storage. Dead man's switch setup. If anything unexpected happens to me, those files get automatically released to a few select journalists, and of course Sterling and Finch's board of directors. Jack nodded slowly. Predictable, but smart. Amateurish, but effective enough to be annoying. Very thorough. You've clearly thought this through. "I know my way around data security," Kevin said smugly. "You certainly do," Jack agreed. "Which brings me to a slight complication." He took a deliberate sip of his scotch. "You see, Kevin, while you were digging into my finances, I had some people look into—" Kevin's smug expression faltered. "What are you talking about?" "Your after-hours server access, for instance," Jack continued conversationally. "Way outside your permissions. Your activities on certain forums. Under the name Data Wraith, I believe, bragging about bypassing SOT security protocols. TSK. Sloppy Kevin. Kevin went pale. How did you? "When you have resources," Jack said, gesturing vaguely around the opulent penthouse. Information isn't hard to come by. Sterling and Finch has a very strict policy about unauthorized access and data breaches. What you did, Kevin, isn't just grounds for firing. It could involve lawyers, possibly criminal charges depending on what exactly you copied and how. Kevin was sweating again, his eyes darting around the room as if looking for an escape route. I was just testing vulnerabilities, for the good of the company. Ah, yes, the penetration tester defense. Jack chuckled softly. Difficult to maintain when you try to blackmail someone using the data you acquired during your testing, especially when said data pertains to a significant internal error you failed to report through proper channels. He let the silence hang thick and heavy. Kevin looked terrified. The power dynamic had shifted entirely. Look, Kevin pleaded, his voice trembling. I didn't mean, I just saw an opportunity. I am in debt. I know about the debt, Jack said coolly, and I understand opportunity. I am living proof of seizing opportunity, wouldn't you say? He paused. So here's my counteroffer. Forget the $5 million. Kevin looked crushed. Instead, Jack continued, I am going to make your debt disappear. All of it. Credit cards. Whatever else you owe. Wiped clean. Consider it. Severance. Kevin stared at him, confused. Severance? You are not. You can't fire me. Oh, I'm not firing you, Jack clarified. You are resigning, effective immediately. You'll cite personal reasons, or pursuing other opportunities. You will hand over every copy, every fragment of those logs you found. You will delete your backups, disable your dead man's switch, and you will sign a non-disclosure agreement so airtight it could suffocate a lawyer. And if I don't, Kevin whispered, though he already knew the answer. If you don't, Jack said, his voice dropping slightly, becoming dangerously calm, then my investigator's report on Data Wraith and his unauthorized server excursions lands on the CEO's desk Monday morning, along with a sworn statement about your blackmail attempt. You lose your job, you probably face legal action from the company, and forget about ever working in its security again. Oh, and your debt, that remains your problem. He smiled faintly. Your choice, Kevin. Kevin looked from Jack to the breathtaking view, then back to Jack. He saw the expensive watch, the tailored clothes, the sheer, effortless power radiating from the junior accountant, who was now anything but. He saw the dead end he'd backed himself into. He slumped, defeated. Okay, he mumbled. Okay, I'll do it. Excellent decision, Jack said briskly. My lawyer has already drafted the NDA. We can handle the data transfer right now. I trust you brought your device. He nodded towards Kevin's ever-present briefcase. The next hour was tense but efficient. Kevin, under Jack's watchful eye, logged into his various accounts, showed Jack the encrypted files, and began the process of transferring and then securely deleting everything. He disabled the dead man's switch protocols, showing Jack confirmation screens. Finally, he signed the NDA, his hand shaking slightly. Jack's lawyer, connected via secure video call, witnessed the signature. Once everything was done, Jack walked a thoroughly demoralized Kevin to the private elevator. Remember, Kevin, Jack said, his voice amiable again, you resign Monday morning. Clean break. And this conversation, this entire situation, never happened. Kevin nodded mutely and stepped into the elevator, looking like a man who had just wrestled a gorilla and lost badly. As the elevator doors slid shut, Jack let out a long breath. He felt a surge of adrenaline, a thrill far more potent than buying a supercar. He'd faced his first real threat and neutralized it, not with brute force, but with leverage and strategy. A familiar shimmer appeared in his vision. Objective complete, resolve security leak. Method, counter-exploitation successful. Rewards, system stability, +5. Discretion, +10. Asset protection skill, minor unlocked. Blackmailer neutralized fee, $50,000 deposited. New latent objective, consolidate power base. Details pending. Jack grinned. System stability. Asset protection skill? And a $50,000 fee for handling Kevin? The system definitely approved. It wasn't just about spending money anymore. It was about protecting it, wielding the power that came with it. Consolidate power base sounded intriguing, hinting at bigger things to come. He walked back to the window, swirling the last of his Macallan. The city lights seemed brighter, sharper. He'd handled the blackmail. He'd protected the secret. The $250 million was safe, and his control over his new reality felt more secure than ever. But the encounter with Kevin left a residue. It was a reminder that his gilded cage was built on a precarious foundation. Sterling and Finch might be oblivious now, but could that last forever? And the system, what was its ultimate goal? Survive, thrive, spend, but to what end? He finished his drink. Those were questions for another day. Right now, he had a nearly empty penthouse to furnish, a rapidly expanding portfolio to manage, with the system occasionally nudging him towards surprisingly lucrative, if obscure investments, and a world of luxury still waiting to be explored. The beige was gone. Life was vibrant, dangerous, and utterly, intoxicatingly golden. And Jack Simmons, former junior accountant, was just getting started. Life settled into a new rhythm, a dazzling symphony of excess orchestrated by Jack and subtly conducted by the system. The Kevin Fletcher incident faded, leaving behind a useful lesson in vigilance and the quiet satisfaction of a problem decisively solved. Kevin resigned as promised, vanishing from Sterling and Finch without a ripple. Jack, using untraceable channels, ensured Kevin's debts were paid off a small price for absolute silence and the removal of an inefficiency. The penthouse became his sanctuary, a monument to his improbable fortune. The interior designer, given carte blanche, created a space that was both breathtakingly luxurious and technologically seamless. Retinal scanners for security, voice-activated everything, a walk-in humidor stocked with cohibas, a climate-controlled wine cellar filled with vintages Jack was rapidly learning to appreciate. Taste refinement plus 10 was proving useful, and an infinity pool on the terrace that seemed to spill directly into the Chicago skyline. His days still involved the bizarre duality of crunching numbers at Sterling and Finch. He hadn't quit yet, finding the mundane grounding and the access strangely useful. Plus the system hadn't prompted it, and living like a tech mogul playboy the rest of the time. His colleagues treated him with a mixture of awe, envy, and confusion. The crypto-millionaire story held, mostly because no one could conceive of the truth. Sarah Jenkins remained an intriguing constant. Her sharp wit often cut through the sycophancy Jack increasingly encountered. She seemed amused by his transformation, occasionally teasing him about his latest extravagant purchase, but her gaze held genuine curiosity, not judgment. "So," she said one afternoon, catching him by the elevators, "heard you bought the old Beaumont building down in the Loop." Jack feigned surprise. News travels fast. He had indeed acquired the historic, slightly dilapidated office building on a whim, prompted by a system objective: acquire undervalued commercial real estate, $20 million. It cost him $35 million. "My friend's cousin works for the real estate firm that brokered the deal," Sarah explained. "Said the buyer was some mysterious LLC that paid cash way over asking. Figured it had your flashy fingerprints all over it. What are you going to do with it? Turn it into a giant vault for your Bitcoin?" Jack laughed, thinking more along the lines of a boutique hotel, or maybe high-end condos. Still exploring options. The system had hinted at future development potential, as a reward suggesting a longer game. "Ambitious," Sarah remarked, her head tilted slightly. "You've changed a lot, Jack. More than just the clothes and the car? Wealth has a way of expanding one's horizons," he replied carefully. "Or just inflating one's ego," she countered, but there was a smile in her eyes. "Don't let it go completely to your head, Simmons. Some of us like the old Jack too." Her comment stuck with him. Was he changing too much? Losing himself in the Patek Philippe's and Lamborghinis? The system encouraged spending, accumulation, displays of status. It rewarded consolidation of power. But Sarah's words were a reminder of the person he'd been before the glitch. He made a mental note to keep that connection, to not become entirely consumed by the system's relentless drive. The system, meanwhile, kept escalating its suggestions. It wasn't just about buying things anymore. It was about influence, about building something. New objective: establish philanthropic presence. Requirement: significant donation, $1 million to arts or sciences. Potential rewards: public reputation plus 20, influence, cultural plus 5, network access, elite. Philanthropy? It seemed counterintuitive to the system's spend, acquire ethos. But Jack saw the logic. Donations bought goodwill, access, and a different kind of power. It was reputation laundering, essentially. He researched potential beneficiaries, settling on a major expansion project for the Art Institute of Chicago. A $15 million donation made through a newly established foundation bearing a discrete name secured him naming rights to a new wing, and an immediate invitation to join the museum's exclusive patrons circle. Suddenly, Jack found himself attending black tie galas, mingling with old money families, tech billionaires, and political figures. His crypto background, coupled with his sudden, massive philanthropic gesture, made him an object of intense curiosity. The system's rewards kicked in. Charisma plus 2 helped him navigate awkward conversations. Negotiation edge was surprisingly useful in social maneuvering, and the promised network access, elite open doors, he hadn't even known existed. He met senators, hedge fund titans, renowned artists. He learned to talk about derivatives and Degas with equal ease. He discovered the system sometimes provided insight fragments, flashes of information about people he met, their interests, their potential value or threat. It was like having a cheat sheet for navigating the highest echelons of society. Of course, luxury spending continued unabated. He acquired a vintage Ferrari, 250 GTO, at auction. He bought a yacht, a sleek Italian masterpiece named Serendipity, moored in Miami. He commissioned bespoke suits not just from Savile Row, but from Keaton and Brioni. He flew chefs in from Paris for private dinners. He indulged every whim, justifying it as fulfilling the system's core directive spend. Spending milestone achieved. $150 million total expenditure. Reward: system upgrade tier 2 functions unlocked. New features: basic market prediction module, enhanced insight fragments, limited risk assessment. The system upgrade was a significant development. The market prediction module was rudimentary, offering percentage probabilities on short-term stock movements or commodity fluctuations, but paired with his existing financial knowledge and the capital to act, it was incredibly powerful. He made several multi-million-dollar bets on obscure tech stocks and currency shifts, guided by the system's percentages, and they paid off handsomely, further solidifying his investment genius facade. The enhanced insight fragments gave him deeper, more useful snippets about people and situations. Limited risk assessment provided warnings, like a faint red shimmer around a potential business partner deemed high risk, or a green glow around a particularly sound investment. His life was now completely surreal. He was living a billionaire's lifestyle while still technically employed as a junior accountant, hiding the ultimate cheat code to wealth. The initial $250 million, despite his extravagant spending, hadn't significantly depleted. Smart investments guided by the system, and his own growing acumen, and perhaps other background machinations of the system itself, meant his net worth was actually increasing. But the system's objectives were becoming more demanding, hinting at that consolidate power base goal. New objective: acquire media influence. Requirement: purchase controlling interest in local media outlet. Potential rewards: influence public opinion plus 15, information control, regional plus 10, synergistic opportunities. Buying a newspaper or a television station, that felt like a major escalation. It moved beyond personal wealth into the realm of public influence. Jack hesitated. This was a different level of exposure. But the system was persistent, the objective flashing in his awareness whenever he considered his next move. And the potential rewards. Information control, that sounded powerful. He targeted a struggling independent Chicago newspaper, The Sentinel. It had a proud history but was bleeding money in the digital age. Jack, operating through another anonymous LLC, initiated negotiations. The owners, desperate for a lifeline, were open to discussion. It was during these negotiations that Jack hit his next snag. The lead negotiator for the Sentinel's ownership group was a sharp, experienced lawyer named Eleanor Vance. She was unfazed by Jack's, or rather, his LLC's vast resources. She dug deep, asking pointed questions about the LLC's funding, its ultimate beneficial owner, its long-term intentions. My clients are concerned about editorial independence, Eleanor stated coolly during one tense meeting in her imposing law office. They won't sell their legacy to someone who intends to turn it into a propaganda mouthpiece or gut it for assets. Jack, relying on his system-buffed charisma and negotiation skills, tried to assure her of his benevolent intentions, investing in quality journalism, digital transformation, etc. But Eleanor remained skeptical. The system's risk assessment overlay shimmered faintly yellow around her. Moderate obstruction. He needed a way to win her over, or bypass her. The system offered a suggestion: an enhanced insight fragment. Eleanor Vance, passionate supporter of inner-city youth programs, secretly frustrated by lack of funding for a specific community center project in Englewood. An angle. Jack pivoted. During their next meeting, he casually mentioned his foundation's recent philanthropic activities. We're actually looking for new initiatives to support, he said smoothly. Particularly interested in youth development in underserved communities. Heard about some great work being done out in Englewood. Eleanor's professional mask slipped. Her eyes lit up with genuine interest. Really? Which programs? Jack feigned vagueness, letting her fill in the blanks, describing the very community center project the system had highlighted. He listened intently, expressed admiration, and then made an impromptu offer. Tell you what, Miss Vance, Jack said, leaning forward conspiratorially. Let's put the newspaper deal aside for a moment. My foundation, we could fully fund that community center project. $5 million, no strings attached. Consider it a gesture of goodwill, showing the kind of community partner my organization aims to be. Eleanor was stunned into silence. $5 million, just like that, for her pet project. It was an offer too good to refuse, both personally and professionally, as it demonstrated the kind of resources the potential new owner wielded. The newspaper negotiations suddenly became much smoother. Eleanor, while still diligent, was noticeably warmer, more cooperative. The deal closed a few weeks later. Jack Simmons, via Anonymous LLC, was now the owner of the Chicago Sentinel. The system chimed its approval. Objective complete: acquire media influence. Rewards received: influence public opinion, plus 15. Information control, regional, plus 10. Synergistic opportunities unlocked. Power base consolidation, 15%. 15%? So this was part of a larger meta objective. Owning a newspaper was just one step. What else would the system require? Financial institutions? Political connections? Technological assets? He now had a penthouse overlooking the city, a supercar in the garage, several, actually, a portfolio bursting with profitable investments, a burgeoning reputation as a philanthropist and savvy businessman, and a newspaper under his control. He also had Sarah Jenkins, who watched his meteoric rise with a mixture of fascination and wry skepticism that kept him anchored, reminding him not to believe his own hype too much. Their relationship remained platonic, hovering in the work friends plus extreme wealth anomaly zone. But there was an undeniable spark. One evening, Sarah joined him for drinks on his penthouse terrace. They looked out at the glittering city lights. "You know," Sarah said quietly, swirling her wine glass, "for a guy who hit it big with crypto, you seem remarkably adept at old-world power plays, philanthropy, buying newspapers. It's very Citizen Kane," Jack chuckled. A genuine laugh this time. "Just diversifying my assets. Or consolidating your power base?" She asked, her gaze sharp, but not accusatory. Jack froze for a microsecond. Had she heard something? Or was it just an astute guess from a smart woman observing his actions? The system offered no insight, no warning shimmer around her. "Maybe a little of both," he admitted carefully. "When you stumble into this kind of money, you realize it's not just about buying nice things. It's about security, influence, making sure you can hold on to it." "Just be careful, Jack," Sarah said softly, turning to look at him. "Games of influence can be dangerous, more dangerous than the stock market." He met her gaze. "I am always careful." But even as he said it, he knew the stakes were rising. The system was pushing him further, faster. Consolidating power meant attracting attention, making enemies. Kevin Fletcher was small fry. The kind of people who noticed media acquisitions and major philanthropic donations played in a different league. And Sterling and Finch? The $250 million elephant was still sitting quietly in the corner undetected. But for how long? Could a secret that big truly stay buried forever, even with a supernatural system helping to pave over the cracks? Jack pushed the worries aside. He had the system. He had the money. He had growing influence. Whatever came next, he'd handle it. He raised his glass to the city. The game was far from over. It was just reaching a more interesting level. The acquisition of the Chicago Sentinel marked a turning point. Jack was no longer just a ridiculously wealthy individual. He was becoming a player. The system seemed to recognize this, its objectives shifting towards solidifying his position within the city's power structure. Latent objective update. Consolidate power base. 15%. New active objective, political networking Tier 1. Requirement, secure private meetings with 3 key city officials e.g. alderman department heads. Potential rewards influence municipal +10. Bureaucratic navigation skill. Minor access to insider information. Politics. Jack had actively avoided it, finding the whole process messy and tedious compared to the clean logic of finance or the straightforward pleasure of luxury consumption. But the system was insistent. Influence wasn't just about money or media. It was about shaping the rules of the game. Leveraging his status as a major philanthropist, and now a media owner, securing meetings wasn't difficult. Invitations that might have been ignored before were now accepted eagerly. He met with the influential chairman of the zoning committee, the powerful head of the police union, and a rising star alderman tipped for a mayoral run. He didn't ask for anything specific. These were introductory meetings feelers. He used his system-enhanced charisma and the insights provided. Alderman Davies is passionate about public parks funding. Union head Riley values loyalty above all else, to build rapport. He talked about his commitment to Chicago, his vision for responsible development, nodding to his Beaumont building project, and subtly positioned the Sentinel as a platform for constructive civic discourse. He made carefully calibrated donations to their preferred charities or PAC's political action committees, always through his foundation maintaining plausible deniability. The system rewarded his efforts incrementally. Influence municipal +3. Bureaucratic navigation skill. Minor proficiency increased. He was learning the intricate dance of local politics, the unspoken quid pro quos, the delicate balance of favors given and expected. It was exhausting but also strangely exhilarating, another layer to the complex game he was playing. His life became even more compartmentalized. By day, Jack Simmons, junior accountant, diligently reconciled expense reports at Sterling and Finch, enduring mind-numbing meetings about optimizing synergy or leveraging core competencies. His continued presence there was becoming increasingly absurd, a fact not lost on his immediate supervisor, Mr. Henderson, who seemed perpetually bewildered by Jack's tailored suits and casual mentions of attending galas with the city's elite. Jack deflected questions with practiced ease, maintaining the flimsy crypto narrative. He needed the access, the low-level internal perspective, and honestly, the sheer weirdness of it amused him. It kept him grounded, in a bizarre way. By night, and often during extended, client meetings away from the office, Jack Simmons, burgeoning tycoon, navigated a world of immense wealth and growing influence. He approved multi-million-dollar investment strategies proposed by his wealth management team, often tweaking them based on the system's market prediction module, oversaw the renovation of the Beaumont building into ultra-luxury residences, dictated subtle shifts in the Sentinel's editorial focus, perhaps more coverage on urban renewal projects, and entertained lavishly in his penthouse. The system continued its relentless pace. Objective, technological acquisition. Requirement, invest $25 million in a cutting-edge local tech startup, biotech, or quantum computing. Potential rewards influence tech sector +10, access to proprietary technology, future growth potential. Jack tasked his investment team, a separate entity from his sought job, naturally, to identify promising candidates. They presented 3 options. The system's risk assessment module glowed greenest around Innovate Dynamics, a small AI firm working on predictive analytics algorithms eerily similar, Jack noted, to what the system itself provided him. He poured $30 million into the company, securing a significant minority stake and a board seat. The young founders were thrilled. Jack was intrigued by the potential synergies the system hinted at. Could this company's tech somehow bolster the system itself, or vice versa? Sarah Jenkins remained his most consistent reality check. They fell into a comfortable routine: occasional drinks, shared lunches where she'd grill him half-jokingly about his latest exploits, her sharp intelligence cutting through the BS. "So, Mr. Tech Investor," she teased him one day, grabbing coffee near the office. "First newspapers, now AI. What's next?" "Buying your own private space program." "Give me time," Jack quipped back, "trying to corner the market on things billionaires do." "You are doing a remarkably good job of it," she admitted, her tone shifting slightly. "Seriously, Jack, this pace you are on, it's incredible. But it's also a lot. Don't burn out, or get burned." "I appreciate the concern, Sarah," he said sincerely, "but I am managing. It's surprisingly manageable, thanks to an invisible, omniscient money system," he added silently. "Just watch your back," she said, her expression serious for a moment. "When you make waves this big, you attract attention, not all of it friendly." Her words were prophetic. The first sign of unfriendly attention came not from Sterling and Finch, nor from jealous business rivals, but from the federal government. An innocuous letter arrived at his foundation's office, a standard inquiry from the IRS regarding the source of the initial endowment funds. Normally this would be routine, handled by accountants, but Jack knew the source was anything but standard. It was a $250 million glitch he'd effectively stolen. Panic flared, cold and sharp. This was different from Kevin Fletcher. This was the IRS. They had resources, authority, and a distinct lack of susceptibility to charm or philanthropic donations. He immediately consulted the high-powered legal team his wealth manager kept on retainer, specialists in tax law and financial investigations. They reviewed the LLC structures, the foundation paperwork, the carefully constructed and largely fictitious narrative of his wealth, originating from crypto and savvy early investments. "The paper trail is clean, Mr. Simmons," the lead lawyer, a formidable woman named Miss Davenport, assured him. "We've layered the ownership structures effectively. On paper, the funds originated from legitimate investment gains transferred from overseas accounts. Jack had the system help create and backdate digital records for a gray area he tried not to think about too much. "But an audit," Jack pressed. "A deep dive, standard procedure for large new foundations," Davenport said calmly. "They'll request documentation, verify sources. As long as our records are consistent, it should be resolved without issue. We have documentation showing the liquidation of significant cryptocurrency holdings prior to the foundation's establishment." More digitally forged documents, courtesy of a system subroutine he discovered called Historical Record Adjustment, used sparingly, risk level high. The system itself offered minimal guidance, just a faint, steady risk assessment, moderate shimmer around the IRS inquiry. No easy, fix IRS problem objective. This required navigating the real world's complex legal and regulatory frameworks. The process dragged on for weeks. Requests for more documents, detailed explanations of specific fabricated trades, interviews with his foundation's director, carefully coached by Davenport. Jack lived on edge, the fear of discovery a constant, low hum beneath the surface of his luxurious life. He poured money into the legal defense, authorizing Davenport to spare no expense. During this period, the system seemed quieter, its objectives less demanding. Perhaps it recognized the external pressure, or perhaps it was working in the background in ways Jack couldn't perceive. He focused on maintaining normalcy, continuing his dual life, projecting an image of calm confidence he didn't always feel. He found himself relying more on Sarah's company, her dry wit a welcome antidote to the stress. He never told her about the IRS inquiry, of course, but her presence was grounding. One evening, sitting in a quiet corner of a high-end jazz club, he'd bought a minority stake in it. Cultural asset acquisition, the system called it. Sarah studied him intently. "You seem stressed, Jack," she observed. "More than usual? Everything okay in paradise?" "Just complexities," he evaded. "Big deals, lots of moving parts. You know how it is." "I know spreadsheets," she corrected gently. "You are playing a different game now. Just remember who you are underneath the Tom Ford suits and the Patek Philippe's." He looked at her, appreciating her candor, her genuine concern. It contrasted sharply with the transactional nature of most of his new relationships. "I am trying, Sarah," he admitted quietly. "It's harder than it looks." Finally, after nearly 2 months of nerve-wracking scrutiny, Davenport called. "Good news, Mr. Simmons. The IRS inquiry has been closed. They're satisfied with the documentation. No further action." Relief washed over Jack so intensely he felt weak. He'd survived. The fabricated paper trail, bolstered perhaps by the system's subtle manipulations or just sheer luck, had held. He authorized a massive bonus for Davenport and her team. The system immediately reactivated. External threat neutralized, IRS inquiry. Reward, stress resistance +5, passive, legal defense skill. Minor unlocked, system obfuscation field strength increased. Power base consolidation, 25%. New objective, global expansion phase 1. Requirement acquire significant international asset, SOT $50 million non-US. System obfuscation field strength increased. What did that even mean? Was the system actively hiding his activities now? Protecting itself? Protecting him? The implications were staggering. And global expansion. The system wasn't content with Chicago. It wanted the world. An international asset? He thought about art, real estate in London or Hong Kong, maybe a Swiss bank. Though that felt too clickshot. He realized then that the game had fundamentally changed. It wasn't just about getting rich and living large anymore. The system was building something through him, a network of wealth, influence, and assets that spanned industries and now borders. And the IRS scare proved that the stakes were incredibly high. Discovery wouldn't just mean losing the money, it could mean prison, total ruin. He looked across the table at Sarah, who was watching him with a curious expression. He offered her a smile, this one genuine. Everything's fine, Sarah. Just finalized a tricky negotiation. He had survived the audit. He owned a newspaper, had political connections, investments in cutting-edge tech, and the IRS had backed off. He was richer and more powerful than ever. But Sarah's earlier words echoed, "Be careful, Jack. Games of influence can be dangerous." He was winning the game so far, but the opponents were getting bigger, the risks were escalating, and the system's ultimate endgame remained a mystery. He was thriving, he was spending, but survival, that felt like an ongoing battle, one he had to keep fighting, one expensive, system-prompted acquisition at a time. The world awaited. London? Tokyo? Zurich? The system would guide him. And Jack, or Maya addicted to the thrill, was ready to play. The global expansion objective sent Jack down a new rabbit hole. London seemed like the obvious choice, a global financial hub, familiar language, plenty of high-value assets. He flew there on his recently acquired Gulfstream G650 objective. Acquire private air transport completed with predictable ease. Staying in the penthouse suite at the Connaught. His wealth management team, now operating with international reach, identified several potential targets: prime commercial real estate in Mayfair, a stake in a prestigious art gallery, even a minority share in a Premier League football club. Tempting, but the system gave it a high volatility warning. The system, however, nudged him differently. An insight fragment flickered. Lord Ashworth, hereditary peer. Significant historical property portfolio. Facing liquidity issues due to inherited estate taxes. Owns Ashworth House, Grade I listed mansion, prime Belgravia location. A historic mansion in Belgravia. It wasn't a typical income-generating asset, but the system often prioritized unique, high-status acquisitions. Jack instructed his team to make discreet inquiries. Negotiating with British aristocracy proved different from dealing with Chicago politicians or Sentinel shareholders. It involved navigating layers of tradition, etiquette, and unspoken class distinctions. Lord Ashworth, a man whose family tree stretched back centuries, was initially resistant to selling his ancestral home, especially to an upstart American crypto millionaire. As Jack overheard one of Ashworth's advisors mutters, Jack employed a strategy of respect in deep pockets. He didn't try to lowball. He expressed profound admiration for the house's history and architecture, genuine admiration cultivated by his system-enhanced taste refinement. He proposed not just buying the house, but establishing a trust fund for its perpetual upkeep, ensuring its preservation. And crucially, he made a very, very generous offer: £60 million, significantly above market value, paid swiftly and discreetly. Lord Ashworth, faced with crippling estate taxes and an offer that secured both his family's financial future and the legacy of his ancestral home, finally acquiesced. The deal was struck over Earl Grey tea and cucumber sandwiches in Ashworth's dimly lit, tapestry-lined study. Objective complete. Global expansion phase 1. Asset acquired. Ashworth House, London, £60 million fought tilde $75 million. Rewards: influence international +5, prestige +10, historical asset preservation skill, power base consolidation 30%. New objectives: secure financial institution access. Requirement: gain seat on board of mid-sized bank or investment firm. Owning a piece of British history felt surreal. Jack hired a top conservation architect and began planning a meticulous restoration, intending to use Ashworth House as his London base, and for hosting exclusive events. Back in Chicago, the system's next demand, securing a board seat at a financial institution, presented a new challenge. This wasn't about buying an asset, it was about infiltrating the established financial power structure. You couldn't just buy a board seat like you bought a watch. It required reputation, connections, and perceived expertise. His philanthropic work, his media ownership, and his growing reputation as a savvy, if enigmatic investor had laid some groundwork. His team identified North Shore Trust and Investment, a reputable old-money Chicago bank, as a potential target. It was large enough to be influential, but not so large as to be impenetrable. The path to a board seat was indirect. Jack began by moving a significant portion of his legitimized personal and foundation assets to North Shore Trust. He cultivated relationships with senior executives, attending bank-sponsored events, sharing system-aided market insights during informal conversations. He leveraged his Sentinel ownership, ensuring positive, but not fawning coverage of the bank's community initiatives. It was a slow burn, requiring patience and careful maneuvering. The system provided occasional prompts: cultivate relationship with Eleanor Albright, head of wealth management, or subtly showcase tech investment portfolio during meeting with CEO Thorne. Months passed. Jack continued his bizarre double-life junior accountant by day. His colleagues now treated him like some eccentric billionaire doing performance art. Power player by night. The Beaumont Building condos went on sale, marketed as the most exclusive residences in Chicago, selling out quickly at record prices, generating significant and legitimate profits that further padded his traceable wealth. His AI company, Innovate Dynamics, secured a major contract, partially thanks to introductions Jack facilitated, increasing its valuation and Jack's paper worth. His relationship with Sarah deepened, evolving beyond witty banter into genuine friendship, tinged with unspoken attraction. She remained the one person who saw glimpses of the old Jack beneath the billionaire veneer. He found himself confiding in her, not about the system or the glitch, but about the pressures and absurdities of his new life. "Sometimes I feel like I am living in a movie," he admitted one evening over dinner at a low-key Italian restaurant they both liked, a deliberate contrast to his usual Michelin star haunts. "And I haven't quite figured out the plot." "As long as you are the one writing the script, you'll be okay," Sarah replied wisely. "Just don't let someone else take the pen." Her words resonated, especially as he navigated the delicate politics of securing the North Shore Trust Board seat. Finally, his persistence paid off. Citing his significant investments, his diverse portfolio, tech, real estate, media, and his commitment to Chicago, CEO Thorne formally invited Jack Simmons to join the board of directors. Objective complete: secure financial institution access. Achievement: board seat, North Shore, trust, and investment. Rewards: influence financial sector, plus 15, corporate governance skill, minor, access to high-level financial networks. Power-based consolidation, 40%. New objective: personnel acquisition key lieutenant. Requirement: recruit highly skilled individual for direct operational management. Loyalty paramount, 40%. The system's plan was unfolding piece by piece, but the new objective was perhaps the most personal yet. Recruit a key lieutenant. Someone skilled, loyal, who could manage the increasingly complex operations of his burgeoning empire, the real estate holdings, the media company, the investments, the philanthropy. Someone he could trust implicitly. The system didn't specify who, but as Jack considered the requirement highly skilled, loyal, capable of managing complex operations, one name immediately came to mind: Sarah Jenkins. She was smart, strategic, observant, and worked in corporate strategy at Sterling and Finch. She understood business, she wasn't easily impressed by wealth, and she possessed an integrity Jack found increasingly rare. Most importantly, he trusted her, or at least he wanted to. But recruiting Sarah meant revealing something, not the whole truth perhaps, not the $250 million glitch or the system. That felt too dangerous, too insane. But he couldn't hire her to be his right hand based on the flimsy crypto-millionaire story alone. She was too sharp. She'd see through it eventually. He needed to give her a version of the truth, something closer to reality, something that explained the scale of his resources and the scope of his ambitions. This felt like the riskiest move yet, more dangerous than the IRS, more complex than buying a London mansion or infiltrating a bank board. It involved emotional vulnerability, trust, and the potential shattering of the one genuine connection he'd maintained through his transformation. He invited Sarah to dinner, not at a flashy restaurant, but prepared by a private chef in his penthouse. He needed privacy, control over the environment. As they sat down, the city lights twinkling below, Sarah looked around. "Okay, Jack, what's up? You've got your serious face on, and usually when you invite me here, it involves champagne and bragging about your latest toy." Jack took a deep breath. "Sarah, I need to tell you something about how all this," he gestured vaguely, "actually happened, and I need your help." He started talking. He didn't mention the $250 million figure specifically, nor the system, but he talked about an unprecedented financial anomaly related to his work at Sterling and Finch, a system error of massive proportions that deposited an absurd amount into his account. He described his initial panic, the decision to keep it, the feeling that it was some bizarre test or opportunity. He framed it as a stroke of unbelievable luck combined with a high-risk decision, carefully omitting the supernatural element. He emphasized the steps he'd taken to legitimize the funds, the investments, the structures he'd built. Sarah listened patiently, her expression unreadable. She didn't interrupt. "So, the crypto story," she finally said when he finished, "was a cover. Jack admitted. A necessary one. An anomaly, she repeated slowly. At Sterling and Finch. And no one noticed? Not in any official capacity, Jack said carefully, thinking of Kevin Fletcher. There were complications. Loose ends I had to manage. Sarah was quiet for a long moment, processing. Jack braced himself for disbelief, anger, judgment. Okay, she said finally, her voice calm. Okay, that makes a terrifying amount of sense, actually. More sense than Bitcoin billionaire Jack. She looked at him directly. And you are telling me this now because I need help, Jack said earnestly, managing all this. It's getting too big for one person. The real estate, the Sentinel, the investments, the foundation. I need someone I can trust, absolutely. Someone smart, capable, strategic. Someone to be my kuo, essentially. My right hand. He paused. I need you, Sarah. He laid out the offer. An executive position running his entire operation, overseeing everything. An astronomical salary. Stock options in his legitimate ventures, like the Beaumont development, and Innovate Dynamics, complete operational autonomy. Sarah stared at him, a whirlwind of emotions flickering in her eyes, shock, calculation, maybe even a hint of fear. Jack, this is insane. You realize that, right? What you are asking me to do, to walk away from my career, my stability, to help manage this. I know it's a huge ask, Jack said, but think of the opportunity. We could build something incredible. And yes, it started unconventionally. But what we're building now, the jobs created, the philanthropy, the businesses, it's real. And the risk? She countered. What if Sterling and Finch finally figures it out? What if this anomaly unravels? That's why I need you, Jack urged, to help me solidify everything, to make it untouchable. We use the resources we have to build something legitimate, something lasting. And I trust you, Sarah, more than anyone. She looked away, towards the city lights, deep in thought. The silence stretched. Jack felt his future hanging in the balance. If she said no, he didn't know who else he could possibly trust. The system's objective would remain unfulfilled. Finally, she turned back to him, a decisive look in her eyes. Okay, Jack, I am in. Jack felt a wave of relief so profound it almost buckled his knees. But, she added, holding up a hand, on my terms, complete transparency between us from now on. No more secrets. No more cover stories. I need to know exactly what I am dealing with, risks included, and I report directly to you, but I run the operations my way. Agreed? Agreed, Jack said without hesitation. Complete transparency. He mentally amended this to complete transparency about everything except the sentient money system that talks to me. Close enough. A faint shimmer in his vision confirmed the system's approval. Objective complete. Personnel acquisition key lieutenant. Individual selected. Sarah Jenkins. High skill. High potential loyalty. Rewards operational efficiency plus 20 strategic planning skill. Minor unlocked. Delegation capability increased. Power base consolidation. 50%. 50%. Halfway there. And now, he wasn't alone. He had Sarah. Her joining wasn't just fulfilling a system objective. It felt like gaining a true partner. With Sarah handling the day-to-day complexities, Jack could focus on the bigger picture, the system's grander objectives, and the ever-present need to protect their foundation. The game had a new player, and Jack felt more confident than ever about winning. The risks were still immense, but now he had backup.